You're first to go.
All right. Yeah, I think that's us to start. Okay, you can still hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we moved the phone closer to the group.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, okay, just run over there and click it so once we figure that out. Okay. So to introduce ourselves, my name is Mark Blanding.
Brian Gilman. Joel Stain.
Frank Wilson.
And we are Team Mark, for lack of a better name right now. And tonight we're going to be presenting our case analysis on Novatis Group. So go ahead, guys, take it away.
Here's a quick look at the agenda. Look at the SWOT analysis, Porter's 5 forces, and then get into the industry and business corporate strategies, look at the marketing, and then also the distribution and capacity sourcing management, looking at kind of the current situation and future considerations on things the company will look at. We'll kick it off quickly with introduction though of the case. Next slide. So since 2003, Novatis Group's been providing disposable diapers to the Morocco country. They market two brands, Dalla and Winnie. Dalla brand is their largest selling, and it's marketed towards the low and middle class, and then you have the Winnie brand, which is marketed towards the upper class as a premier brand. They do continue to face stiff competition from other global brands. However, they have been able to become the #1 market share diaper supplier, and they've also exceeded their current production capacity. So based on the increasing opportunities and industry growth that they're predicting, they're evaluating adding an additional production line based on this increased demand. So this case is going to take a look at current market trends, their opportunities, and some of their different strategies moving forward.
Okay, so with that, I want to transition into SWOT analysis. And what I've done is I've looked at the typical strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And with that, instead of making a huge list, I've tried to narrow it down to the things that I found that were the most important. I think most of all, it's a local company. That's where they really gain the most strength. Culturally, it looked like they've got strong relationships not only with wholesalers and retailers, but with the communities in general. You see that they're tied in. They culturally understand what's going on. There's a strong brand recognition, by locals compared to international brands. And I think what's very important is that they've always had a physical presence in Morocco, whereas some of the other companies have kind of been in and out. They may import stuff, but there's not a physical presence there, and I think that's something that's helped them quite a bit. Weaknesses, right now their production capacity has been reached. 100% of their diapers produced are being sold. They're working 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. So unless they have significant investment, they're really not going to be able to expand anymore at this point. Economies of scale, price, and competitiveness. There's definitely some stiff competition that they're dealing with some of the other international companies. The last bullet there, raw material price instability and long lead times. All the raw materials that go into the diapers have to be imported. There's nothing domestically available, and that's a big disadvantage for this company, and something that they're going to have to overcome with stockpiling raw materials, which there's some pretty big swing prices that they have to overcome. Opportunities, proximity to customers, their distribution was a huge benefit for them. Low wages, just as I consider it a weakness and an opportunity at the same time, is that the production is at max capacity, which and there's no leftover material, which tells me there is room for growth. It's just an indicator for me what I was able to extrapolate from looking at this. The last bullet there, rise in middle class with more buying power. So it looks like that there's going to be more opportunity for folks to be able to purchase their product. Under threats, competing head-to-head with large, well-established diaper companies. Anytime you're going against big international conglomerates, you're always going to have challenges. Smuggled diapers continue to steal market share. We already talked about the raw materials and suppliers. The last bullet I'm going to talk more about as I dig into this, and that's the negative birth population growth rates. Right. I'm going to call this convergence of factors here, is there's a declining birth rate, there's a negative actual population growth, and you overlay that with the increase in income and more women entering the workforce, so there's more of a middle class being established. It's almost a cancellation of the two factors. I mean, we didn't really have enough information to make a detailed argument here, but it looks like that those two forces actually cancel each other out, to where the only way they're going to increase their market share is to take from other companies. Next slide, I'm going to do these real quick. Just some quick slides to show birth rates from 2000 to 2012, significant drop in the number of birth rates. Next slide. Unemployment. Unemployment is dropping, which means that there's more income for families. Next slide. And population growth rate, steady decline, again with negative immigration and just an overall decline in the number of people in the country. Next slide. And this just kind of, some assumptions based on the data is what I've already kind of stated, is that the two factors combined basically offset each other. And the assumption that I have to make based on the data is that really it's kind of almost a mute point between the two, and the only way that they're going to continue to gain market shares from other firms. Next slide, please. Just very quickly running through the Porter's 5 forces. Competitive rivalry, again, from the major competitors, Procter & Gamble, Kimberly-Clark, smuggled diapers, and other competitors totaling 9% of the market share. Threats of new entry, again, illegally smuggled diapers. The potential growth, as there is growth, that's going to attract new competitors into the market share. Although that last one is not really a threat of a new entry, but it is something that will limit it, and that is the imports limited by the government tariff that's been established. The only threat of substitution that I was able to come up with is cloth diapers, which is very commonly used in third world countries. And the last point under buying power is, again, raw materials not available domestically, and they are subject to raw material price fluctuations and long lead times, forcing them to stockpile a large supply of raw materials, which ties up them in inventory costs. Next slide, please. A quick rundown of the industry analysis. About 7 billion people on the planet today. 129.6 million babies were born in 2011. 342 million diapers changed daily. And these are just some bullet points. Some things that are important to know is world market penetration for disposable diapers is about 21%. Third world remains at less than 2% of market penetration. I think that's an important point. And go ahead and jump to the next slide. This is kind of where I want to hone in on. I want to highlight this, that Morocco market penetration, according to this, and the case study numbers were just slightly different from this source, but 38% market penetration, which means that there's a lot more potential for growth. But again, those factors, I think over time, time is going to tell whether that the rise in income is going to outpace the declining population growth and birth rates. And with that, I can turn this over and talk about business strategy.
Okay, so when we talk about business strategy, I'm going to be going over some issues. Before Novatis entered the market, Pampers pretty much dominated the market, 80% of the market share they took. And since Dollar brand has come into the market, they took over, and now they have the majority at 56%. So how did they do that? Well, they had an advantage. Morocco supported the domestic diaper market, so they increased tariffs on bulk imported diapers. They also, Novatis Group also adopts to product and technological innovations. So one example is that Dollar brand uses plastic bag sheets, and they were able to reduce their price per unit down by 2%. And basically, Dollar Diapers has been able to supply their diapers at 1.5 PPU versus Pampers price per unit. So another issue that Novatis has is there's no exclusive agreements in shelf space. Right now, they distribute diapers to 101 out of 200 supermarkets. So there's 99 markets there that they haven't touched yet. No limited shelf space equals limited profit margin. So a solution would be to aggressively pursue that to get these exclusive agreements and thus helping out with the profit margins. And as Frank mentioned, the demand is going down. I mean, less babies equals less diapers. So, how do we go about that? The case mentioned Morocco families used to have 4 to 5 children, but now 2 to 3. Frank mentioned a couple of points that women are supported in the workforce now, and that's affecting these numbers. A solution would be to increase demand with the rural residents. Right now, they're only using 1 to 2 diapers per week, as opposed to the urban market, which they use 2 to 3 per day. So, next slide. So how do we do that? Well, there are government initiatives to fund income-generating projects for rural women and entrepreneurs. Novatis can possibly look into using this funding from the government to support women in the rural areas to grow their business over there. And I mentioned their core value of taking part in the kingdom's development, because we talked about that in the HBR study. But that definitely supports that. Moving on to corporate strategy, how does the company grow? Well, we were asked to consider Novatis Group wants to expand their product line to include additional paper products. And I agree with what the case study mentioned, that Geezer Industry already turns out 100 tons per day at the paper mill, and they convert to 30 tons per day. So I think that they should definitely utilize Geezer Industry facilities for that. I mentioned working on increasing demand for diapers. So how do we handle making the diapers? Because right now they're at capacity, they can't make anymore. Well, they bought Norsedex, they brought them on into Novatis Group, and they already make diapers, so it just makes sense to create an additional line rather than just improve what they already have there. It's more expensive to do that, to just build a new line within Norsedex. And then finally, they're limited to the Moroccan market. They're geographically in a good location. They're Northwest Africa, and just right across Strait of Gibraltar. They can tap into Europe, or they can look for ways to do that.
So in the next section, we're going to talk about the marketing strategy and promotion. And if we take a look at what the current environment is right now, right now we're looking at television, radio advertising. There's some advertisements on television that definitely go out during some of the more important times of the year for the areas, for the culture during Ramadan. It brings a lot of awareness to the product. This brings a lot of good access to even illiterate families, people that don't have a whole lot of reading. So print ads in those cases are not necessarily going to be the best option. We have delivery vehicles. We have 30 trucks, all of them with the dollar images and branding on them. That's visual, moving billboards that everybody gets to see every day. And we even have partnerships and discounts set up. I was able to find some information online where you could actually find and collect proofs of purchase. Take those proofs of purchase, turn those into the participating stores, and get discounts on other merchandise. So that's a fantastic way to help get the message out. You know, that DALA is about the community, it's about helping everybody else out. Excellent. Moving forward, as it's been mentioned, we're seeing a shift in how the economy in Morocco is changing. We're seeing more disposable income. We're seeing more families moving into a more modern lifestyle. So that's starting to see a little bit more, proliferation, excuse me, of internet and social media. So this would be a fantastic way for DALA to start branching out. We can start offering different things such as incentives and discounts online. You see, you have something like Groupon here. You could even go on their website and download coupons to be able to take into the stores to get discounts on that. We expand also the delivery trucks. As I mentioned, we've got 30 trucks right now that have the DALA brand image on it. And we have a larger fleet of trucks that we're not even utilizing anymore. So for just this minimal investment, we can put the image right on all those trucks, and now we have even more moving billboards. We get DALA into the public perception that much more. And we can start looking into new partnerships. As it was mentioned, a lot of the changes that are happening in Morocco are also starting to help increase the awareness of women's health. More women are having children in hospitals rather than in rural areas. So what may make a very good idea is to start partnering with those hospitals to create new mother kits. So providing things such as formula, diapers for infants, so that a new mother, an expectant mother, isn't going to be completely left out in the cold. They'll have something to get started. Next slide. On the distribution side, right now we're looking at a couple different ways that we're distributing the product. There is a multi-tier distribution channel. And what that does right now is it provides the diapers to wholesalers who then provide those out into the rural markets. Now what that does is it does give us a lot of good penetration out into the rural markets, but we run into an issue where we don't have a whole lot of fixed pricing for the products. So there's a lot of haggling going on. Now that is great for the end purchaser, because now they can buy what they can afford, but that's not so good for us because it's affecting our bottom line. We're not seeing the revenues that we possibly could. And the option that they also have in the rural market, because they're only buying 1 or 2 diapers a week instead of buying a large case in bulk, is they're buying these in individual packets. And we're seeing that it sort of degrades the brand a little bit, because now we're seeing that, oh, this is the one that they break out and they can sell to the people that can't quite afford what I can afford as a more affluent individual. So I may not be inclined to purchase anymore. We also go direct to the stores. We work with a number of retail outlets. This allows us for fixed retail pricing, but as it was mentioned, we're competing for shelf space with the big boys in the industry. We're competing with Pampers. We're competing with all the others that are out there. We have to fight for survival, and we may have to take cuts in order to get on the shelf. Next. Moving forward, what may make the most sense is to start focusing more on the direct retail outlets. As it was mentioned, there's a lot of stores that we're still not in, and it makes a lot of sense to start going after that, especially as the Moroccan economy is improving and we're starting to see a larger middle class. We're seeing more disposable income. One thing that may help out tremendously with that is trying to broker exclusivity deals. If we can become an exclusive to a particular store, that gives the store a leg up over somebody else. We carry a DALA brand. We carry a home brand, something that's made locally, something that you can trust, something that's going to go back into the kingdom and provide support for the kingdom. So that's why you need to come into our store and buy DALA. With that, that could also lower our costs, because now we don't have to fight with everybody else. I know that you're going to come to me to get the diapers because we have our agreement. And just like we have the idea with women's programs, with hospitals and new mother programs, we can also branch out and we can start looking at brand partnerships. So just because Dala itself and Novatis does not participate in things such as formula, wipes, powders, and other, baby needs, we can partner with other companies that do, and we can offer discounts, we can offer packages. Buy 10 diapers, you can get a package of baby wipes for free. We can work something out with that to incentivize the purchase of our products.
All right, last but not least, we'll look at capacity management and sourcing management. The current situation is they have 2 production sites, as we said, they're at full capacity. 2 things they're known for, or one thing they're known for is the very high quality standards that they have, but also they're getting good line utilization with those lines being full and selling all the diapers they're making. So as far as future considerations, they're looking at additional production lines. And the things they want to consider is maintaining the existing high quality standards that they have, as well as making sure they can manage the inventory levels, which goes back to making sure that there's enough demand to meet the line capacity if they go ahead and make that investment for one. As we said, the cost of that additional line is expensive. Just the upgrades can exceed the actual cost of the new line. So there's a lot of expenses to take into consideration. They need to make sure they're going to fill it. We did touch on some of the corporate strategies, marketing strategies, and the other improvements they can make to try to map out that trajectory of future growth to make sure it's in line with the volume levels they're going to be able to support. So from a quality standpoint, it's really all about utilizing best practices. They already have lines, 2 plants, common process standards should be put in place, having standard equipment to make sure they can utilize those between the same plants and lines. What that helps do is it helps the setup of the lines, minimizing the cost, training, the ongoing operation and maintenance needs for them. If they're similar, you have the same people working on them, fixing them. From a resource standpoint, it's just existing know-how, lessons learned, again, training the operators, utilizing everything you have in place today to make sure the same quality is met. From the managing capacity standpoint, in the case wanted to look at making sure they don't have excess inventory. That's really all about production flexibility. I said they were making, currently running 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. As demand shifts some, you could take away 1 shift, you could remove 1 day a week of production to try to help balance that. And then also going back to kind of some of the standardization between it, you can balance the potential capacity between different sites and lines, again, just to make sure that you utilize your capacity as much as possible between the workers and the lines that you have running at the different sites. Additionally, having the ability to modify and share lines between products. So as demand of premium diapers going up and one's dropping off from their generic brand, you can help balance that by having commonality between them to run multiple products down the same line. That helps minimize capital expenses and manage the capacity constraints. From a sourcing standpoint, as it was touched on earlier, the profit margins are very small. So really they're making a buck by volume. They need to sell a lot of diapers in order to make their money. And we also made the statement that all the raw materials are currently imported, not just for them, but for all the diaper manufacturers within the country. So future considerations the case looked at, it's about maximizing the profitability. The 2 items to look at was the localization of suppliers and the vertical integration. Basically taking that value stream and trying to bring it inside within their own manufacturing plant to be more vertically integrated. Next slide. So relative to the localization of suppliers, it said they were maintaining 3 months of raw material. Again, that's just to balance the lead time they have in the supply pipeline versus the potential fluctuation in demand. The issues with that is there's no existing raw material suppliers locally they could use. 2 ideas is to look at potential alternate suppliers producing similar products. So 2 right within their own corporate umbrella is the Eureka Trading, which was an importer and trader of polyurethane, which was one of the products within the diapers. The other was the Jazeera Industries, which does the hygienic paper products, which again, you could look at utilizing those materials in those facilities to produce some of the products you need to have localized. The other idea would be to look at working with your existing suppliers, but having them localize their own production facilities within Morocco. I mean, they have potential untapped growth opportunities there, so it could be a business advantage for them as well. So that was one of the options that they could look at. And then from the vertical integration standpoint, they did mention that they have 13 different components that make up diapers. That would be the challenge probably with what they could vertically integrate. However, doing that would help to reduce lead times, inventories. It would neutralize the exchange rate fluctuation that they see today. So those are some of the pros. The cons with that would be, again, just making sure you're hitting the economies of scales that you need, price competitiveness that you need, versus going out to a supplier that's producing these in mass quantities. So out of these two, from a sourcing standpoint, looking at localizing something either to an alternate supplier or having one of your existing suppliers localize is probably a little bit more realistic than trying to bring some of those products in-house and be more vertically integrated. That concludes our presentation. We'll open it up for questions.
Sorina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I can hear you guys pretty well. actually.
Okay, so we're gonna start with you with your question.
Okay. Let's see. So, you provided a good example for, we're talking about the strategy for increasing consumption. You went into an example for how we could increase consumption in the rural areas. Sorry. And you also mentioned another potential idea of, just being more aggressive with getting shelf space on or with the other supermarkets. Did you have any specific suggestions for how to do that? Or any ideas?
Shelf space.
Well, as far as going after shelf space, there's, as we mentioned, one of the ways would be trying to get an exclusivity deal with one of the stores to make sure that, that we can get, front and center. But in some cases, we definitely recognize that in order to become the one that you go to, we kind of have to be the lowest cost. Rather than having to import diapers from, like Pampers or one of the other manufacturers, if we offer at a lower cost to certain stores, then that would definitely, we feel, would get us on their store shelves. You guys have something else to add to that?
Well, my thought is, the kingdom, it looks like they're really working on trying to improve things economically and boost domestic production. Teaming with the government, maybe marketing campaigns to show, some of that domestic production pride, kind of that made in the USA type concept to say, look, this is, to get folks to buy domestically made products. And then if you can carry that over into some of the wholesalers and then eventually into the retailers to buy into that as a selling point, they may be more inclined to take on that as a marketing strategy of their own to sell more domestic product.
Okay, thank you. Another question that I have is, you mentioned the next step should probably be increasing capacity with another production facility. And do you think that there are any drawbacks to doing that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the drawbacks is that it was a fairly significant cost. So the risk there is you make the capital investment, you put in the line, and then you don't fill it. So some of the alternatives was installing that line in an existing company they had purchased or existing facility. That would help lower the capital cost if it's just a line and not an entire building. But really, it seemed like their long-term plan was centered around what they thought the future demand and growth was, and then balancing that with what their production volumes could be.
Part of what there's several risk factors. We talked about those where even though the income levels are growing, there's that kind of a downslope in potentially the number of babies that are out there. It all hinges on market penetration at this point, and they can draw from that. The advantage of adding another facility is you make the line more scalable, because right now you're at the top end of your capacity. You can't grow anymore. If you did add another production line, you could reduce both lines down to one shift a day, you know, and then you can scale it up and down. It gives you a lot of capacity or scalability that way. But again, it's, you know, there's a lot of cost associated with that. Are you gonna get return on investment? Probably not, when I say probably, there's possibility not right away, but growth over time will allow that. But right now, there's no way to ratchet up production because you're completely maxed out. So I think it's a risk worth taking based on the limited market penetration they have at this point.
That's a good point. Yeah, I definitely like your response there. And I just, I know that some companies right now are looking at making sure that their current production systems are as efficient as possible prior to investing in capital equipment or, you know, having another production facility altogether. But, you know, at the same time, having that separate facility does allow you for a lot more growth and stability in reducing your shifts. So it is something to balance. Let's see. Okay.
You can go easy on us.
Another question I have is, you know, I really thought that the kits for the new mothers was a good idea. You know, so you think the new mothers can have, you know, their first diaper could be a $1 diaper, which is really great. But I was thinking, like, is there potential for even an earlier introduction?
Yeah, I think that there absolutely is, and we definitely see, you know, things like that over here in the United States with things such as Planned Parenthood, as well as with a lot of the pre-care that happens, you know, right after, you know, a woman becomes pregnant. We do try to put a lot of emphasis on that to make sure that, you know, the child is going to be cared for both in pre-birth and through their early life, and doing a similar, you know, at least working with the government, working with agencies in Morocco towards a similar idea would definitely be very beneficial. And it would definitely show, again, that, you know, Novatis Group and Dala specifically, you know, they're here for the kingdom and to help make sure that, you know, we're setting the stage for future generations to ensure that everything's going to be all right.
Chauffeur Lamas pass, you walk right through that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the government's really pushing women's health issues. I think it's a great point.
Yeah.
And if we can get, you know, a partnership with either the government or whatever agency is maybe sponsoring some of these activities and programs, and make that, you know, when you leave, like you said, you get a couple of, maybe a bag of goodies that the bag has Dala's brand on it. And it's something that it establishes that brand recognition before they're even the first mother, you know, it helps with that.
Okay. All right, well, those are all the questions that I have. Great presentation.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much. So let me take it to the other team. Do you guys have any question to ask this team? Don't be scared, you know.
I did have one question. You put a real high emphasis on the declining growth in population. The population is still growing from what I understood. It's just growing at a lesser rate. And with the combination of the middle class also growing, doesn't that really mean that more people have the potential to buy diapers where they have been using cloth diapers?
Well, I won't disagree with what you're saying. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but it actually looked like there was an actual negative population growth. So it actually is declining overall because it's a combination of factors. It's not just the lower birth rates, the higher death rates, which obviously, you know, there's not going to be mothers at that age, but there's a negative immigration going on. People are leaving the country. So the numbers are actually in the negative and not, that's what I was trying to show on that chart. So does one outweigh the other? You know, at this point, without really doing, you know, like an in-depth analysis, like if I was actually the owner of Dala, you know, what I would want to know, does that offset? I had to make some assumptions based off the limited data that we had, and that's kind of the direction I took it. I think there's definitely some potential. There's other factors that are limiting, and that's in the case where it talks about, you know, getting market penetration into the rural areas. But, you know, there's no way to dispose of the diapers there. That was a big, so there's more than one thing that kind of, I tried to pick two of the biggest factors and drive that point home from what I saw, but there's certainly more than just, you know, one or two variables out there. But definitely a good point. I mean, there is room for growth, and depending on how quickly that income rises, and with mothers joining the workforce, now they may have a two income household, then we're going to see that grow a lot faster than could potentially be expected. So something that would need to be watched for sure. Anyone else? Sorry,
I agree. Well said.
Well, that was my only real question.
Okay.
All right, anyone else questions?
Okay, now I'm gonna have my question later on. And you have question? Go ahead.
Have you considered Arab Spring in your research on this company?
Considered what?
Arab Spring. The revolution in in most of African countries like Egypt and Tunisia also.
Talking about expanding into,
This will impact the political situation in
So if, like the situation in Syria that's happened, so you've got a
Okay.
lot of political unrest, you've got a lot of things that can happen. And really in what's presented in the case, it indicated to us that it was a relatively stable region. So we weren't terribly worried about that type of, that type of conflict spilling over into the country. In any type of situation, is that a possibility? Yes, there is a possibility of mass uprising and upheaval here in the United States even. But the chances of it happening here are very low, and we feel really that it's similarly low in Morocco. It is a stable area, and it's
even though it's a monarchy, I mean, it's the environment has been really supported. I mean,
but it has been impacted, and the King Mohammed made some major political reform in
Sure.
Morocco after this revolution in some African countries.
well, won't disagree with what you're saying, but even with political upheaval, change of government, once that settles down, unless it stays in complete turmoil, the market demand will resurface. Kids are not going away. I mean, Syria, I think, is an exception, possibly because of just the mass exodus of people. I mean, that's clearly the exception. But you didn't see that in Egypt. You saw, a big turmoil. You saw a lot of protesting and things like that. But mothers still have to go buy diapers. You know what I'm saying? And even in the midst of all that, maybe not at the moment, but when things become stable again, you still have to go to the store. You still have to buy your basic supply. That I would call diapers a basic supply, whether it be cloth or disposable.
Any other questions? So thank you so much for being here. And we have another theme. Sorry, can you stay longer with us for another presentation?
No.
So our group is Toy Avery and myself, Nick Downing. I'm going to be presenting Toys Parts today, and hopefully you don't get too sick of my voice. All right, our basic layout today is we're going to go through industry analysis, SWOT, 5 forces, business strategy, marketing strategy, and corporate strategy. Then we'll go through capacity management, distribution, sourcing management. Then we've added a couple extra sections which include the present business environment and our conclusion, which incorporates our suggestions for the future business growth.
I will start with industry analysis. The first point I would cover is the standard industrial classification for Novatis group. Novatis Group is under pharmaceutical preparation 2834. I will hit some points about the industry history. Novatis Group has been in disposable baby diapers since 2003. It is about 11 years until now. Novatis Group produced several products like baby wipes and adult diapers. Also, baby diapers like Della and Winnie are two brands for disposable baby diapers. Novatis Group also wants to increase its market share, so it's working on 3 points, targeting the middle class consumers in urban areas, and also to target the low income groups in rural areas. And they want to increase the production capacity by including one additional line for baby diapers and line for sanitary napkins. I will identify the business cycle for baby diapers. It is under non-cyclical stocks, which means the profits associated to these stocks don't change easily with the business cycle. And also it is known as defensive stocks, which means these stocks don't rely on economic environment to increase the sales. The geographical location of Morocco is in the far west of North Africa. The strategic location of Morocco comes from the short distance between Europe and Morocco. Consumer market data is the next point that I will cover. It consists of demographics and psychographics. The population in Morocco is about 33 million in 2013, but in some resources that they indicate maybe the population is about 40 millions by including the immigrant people and some people in rural areas that they couldn't include it in the population. The number of women in urban areas is increasing because the immigrant from rural areas is increasing. So it's likely to see the number is growing in urban areas. The estimated age of women at first birth is about 25, and there is 2 children for each woman. The buying habits in Morocco, we would see in urban area and rural area. In urban areas, we will see 2 to 3 daily usage for people, for consumer, and while in rural area from 1 to 2 weekly usage. We'll move to competition. We would, as you mentioned in your first presentation, that there are 2 competitors in place, Pampers and Huggies. They are the most players in the industry, and they are both global brands. The location of these outside of Morocco, and they compete aggressively with Della, and they come with high quality, but the price is a little bit high. Next slide, please. The availability of substitute goods. We have washable clothes diapers, which most of consumers in rural areas used to use. This washable clothes diapers can save money, but the downside of washable clothes diapers is the time consuming. Economic aspect in Morocco. Morocco has a stable economic. this is because the low labor cost and steady growth and low inflation and the gradually falling unemployment. Political aspects, the Moroccan has a tax system consists of income system and corporate tax and also additional taxes for if the income is higher than the normal, there is additional taxes, and also there is taxes for registration and application as a fee. There are also employment laws. Employment laws are inspired by international labor organization. So it is like the regulation, like the recommendation from international labor organization. Because Morocco suffers from several environmental problems like water, they impose environmental regulations, and any company can implement these regulations. They deduct part of the tax from the company. About the political stability, as I mentioned in my question about Arab Spring impacted mostly all countries and all Arab countries, and one of them is Morocco. Morocco is still stable, even the King Mohammed made significant change in political side. Technology aspect, we will see in diaper manufacturers, they use technological advanced machinery and automatic monitoring and control system. All of this to enhance the quality and the capacity. Next slide.
Okay, I will talk about the SWOT analysis. And the SWOT analysis includes the strengths, weakness, the opportunity, and the threats. And in this case, the strengths for the Novatis groups, first one is has close relationship with distributors. That's why the Novatis group has good sales. And second is the Novatis groups can contribute presence, and third, the quality control quickly adopts and technological innovation. And the Novatis groups has quality control, so he has a good quality for the sellers and the customers to think his product is very good. And the Novatis groups, the weakness, the first influence the global brands, and the second the production capacity. The global brands, because the Morocco is a developing country, so the government encourage the global company to invest in Morocco. So, but the Novatis is a local company, so the global company will influence the Morocco group. This is the first reason. The second is compared to the global company, the Novatis group is a local company. Compared to the global brands, his management or his production machine and the production capacity is worse than the global brands. Those opportunity for the Novatis groups is Moroccan government encourage national industry. You know, as a developing country, our country want to develop their company, it must encourage national industry. The national industry is fundamental for the developing country. And the second is the low labor cost. And compare some foreign company, the labor cost is a very important cost, because the low cost and because the low cost can relax more money to the technology and the other parts. And the third is growth of the middle class. Because the Morocco in the middle class is growth. It's an opportunity for the Novatis group and they are selling their groups. And the last part is the shelters. The first one is the amount of children decrease, and the second, the government encourage foreign companies to invest in Morocco. The first is because in Morocco, the children, in the case, the children were, in the past is 4 to 5 children, one family, but and now the children is 3 to 4 children for a family. So the amount of the children is decreased. And the second is government encourage foreign companies. It's the foreign companies has good management and good production capacity, so it will influence the local companies such as the Novatis Group.
I'd like to walk you through a few of our 5-force model here. The first of which is bargaining power, which we actually defined as very high for suppliers. Primarily because you have so much required lead time when you order products, therefore giving the suppliers the upper hand, in some situations possibly overcharging you because they know it's an essential, they know that you have to buy it in a bigger bulk, and therefore it's subject to price changes, and since you're buying infrequently, you're also subject to whatever the price is at that given time. As far as the machinery, a lot of the machinery is made in Italy. Some of the parts come from Japan and China, making shipping for those even longer in pipeline. As far as bargaining power for buyers, we found that it was very low, primarily because Dala is a far less expensive product. It is available in rural areas, whereas some of the higher end products aren't available in those rural areas. And there's also a range of costs that different buyers can get a hold of the products. You've got low-income people that are still purchasing Dala brand. They're just purchasing smaller quantities, which I'll get into later in the presentation. As far as threat of new entrants, we recognize that the threat of new entrants is very high because it is an emerging market, and there's a lot of potential for other people to gain some of that market share. It's been fairly easy to gain up until this point, and maybe continue to be easy to gain, but there is a high chance of new people entering the market. Also, the women returning to the workforce ends up causing a decline in the number of births, as we've seen in some of those statistics, which causes less likelihood for high volume of sales to exist on one end because there are less babies, on the other end because they're earning more. As far as substitutes of threats, they're relatively high, partially because of the availability of other products, and partially because of the substitute products that do exist, like cloth diapers. In rural areas, I'm sure they're even going without cloth diapers in some situations. And then we have competitive rivalry in the industry, which are relatively obvious. You have Kimberly-Clark producing the Huggies brand, I believe, and then Procter & Gamble producing the other alternative. As far as business strategy, we broke it down into what their core activities are and combined it with their core values. Some of those are a high quality guarantee, which they constantly have in their product advertisements and they constantly have in their product descriptions. It's also why they use the level of equipment that they have chosen to install, very high quality, high accuracy. They're also founded on the philosophy of being close proximity to the customers, which their competitors can't do. The competition's either being smuggled in or imported in from a longer distance. And then the other major critical factor is being a critical player in the kingdom's development. This is something that's obvious in every marketing ploy that they use, every communication, how they invest in getting a hold of retailers, as well as the ways that they're approaching attaining workforce and materials and equipment. So one of the other advantages, this was kind of a side item in regards to business strategy, was the variability in quantity that they offer. A lot of their distributors although they don't prefer it, they accept that their distributors are breaking down their cases into single serving quantities, allowing them to sell to people who can only purchase 1 or 2 diapers at a time. Once again, here's where you identify that rural areas, they're still purchasing, they're just purchasing 2 to 3 a day, whereas the average baby might need to use up to 10 to 12 diapers a day. So they're definitely under their minimum, whereas, and that's in the middle to upper class. In the rural areas, it ends up being 2 to 3 times per week. They're buying them, obviously, because it's a high quality product, and they believe it. This goes through some of the things that I described prior in ways that they're achieving their business strategy. Primarily, they're using innovative designs to minimize material and to maximize efficiency, like reducing the thickness of the plastic backer, which reduced total cost by 2%, providing lower cost manufacturing within the country, because obviously when you manufacture at your sales location, it's less expensive in shipping and other associated costs. They have very strong brand differentiation, and as we'll look into later, they're also expanding different products. And relatively high quality, low price. As far as marketing strategies, these are a lot of the existing marketing strategies as well as some of the future. The keys that we noticed were Facebook, YouTube, which are a growing trend, and since there's growing accessibility to the internet in the country, this is providing a low-cost marketing method with a very high return. They're also working with a lot of their direct vendors. One of the ways that they're in the 100+ locations that they are is because of working with those distributors and sellers one-on-one. So the owners and people within the company are really building strong relationships, and those relationships result in better sales. As far as future plans, there's the option for phone marketing, which is discussed in the case. And I really believe as the market continues to grow and accessibility to technology continues to grow, the phone marketing will definitely be a method for getting information out there and branding. But more than that, the people who can afford phones are, in a lot of cases, the people who are also in the age range to have children. There are some exceptions to this, like elderly, but by and large, that's a general layout. And then they're doing or proposing multi-language ways to differentiate product brands, where in some cases they've discussed, and I don't know if they're pursuing, are they pursuing?
No.
Pursuing a means of adding a new product line and doing a new whole packaging for it with the French language as a substitute. Do you want to fill in on that subject?
They are using the French language for communicating with their customers and the fan page also.
As far as corporate strategy, pass that.
And I will talk about corporate strategy. I think it's the best strategy for the Novatis group because I think no matter diapers, tissues, or baby wipes, all the products are the necessary of the life because this industry is a fundamental industry for a country. Every people need the diaper, this necessary of the life. And the second is expanding the product line in a good way to increase supply because this is the corporate strategy for the Novatis groups, and he want to develop this industry, so he must to expand his product line and increase the supply and only increase the supply and his amount of the demand will increase. And the second is best strategy need the best implement, and the first one correct marketing position. And in the SWOT analysis, the Novatis group, the opportunity is he grows in the middle class. I think the correct marketing position for the Novatis group is a middle class, because the middle class, the amount of the people it grows. And second, analyze the market over time, because as a company, as an industry, he must analyze his market, because as people decrease or increase, as this style is either people to like or dislike, is must analyze on time. And the last one is the quality and cleanliness. And I think the quality for the Novatis group is very important, because if his product quality is bad, so his demand will decrease, because every people likes the high quality product. And the cleanliness is fundamental for the product, because it cleanliness is good for the health, and the health is very important. And the next slide.
All right, I'm going to walk through some capacity management. First, I'll walk through the issues. Obviously, they're running at full capacity, 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. It's very hard work on the equipment. It's very hard work on people. They also have limited distribution channels, making it harder to maintain high efficiency if they have a lag in the supply chain. And once again, this ties into 3 months of average inventory, as well as sourcing issues where things are coming from up to 10 other countries. And when you've got things shipping in from that many different countries, for one thing, it's hard to coordinate. For two, you may have other shipping regulations, taxes, and tariffs that come into play that can slow down your supply chain. As far as capacity management, there are some obvious solutions, one of which is to add another manufacturing facility. Another would be to access other raw materials. Sourcing some local materials. There's always a chance that there are manufacturers for things like polypropylene and polycarbonates, which are very readily available plastics. And any company that's working with plastics in the country or in close other countries should have the capacity to at least ship them the raw materials, to where then they can break down those materials into the right specs for the diaper brands. Another option would be just to add another facility for extra storage and a small quantity of manufacturing for downtime when equipment fails, and basically as a backup source. There's also a high chance for the demand of product to grow, therefore adding new manufacturing facilities is highly likely to be profitable.
Moving to the distribution, we found after reading the case study that multi-tier distribution channel is the more accessible channel for rural area and urban areas, since they have a good relationship with wholesalers. So we see also the compete for shelf space is the downside of the other channel, which is the streamlined channel. So it's hard to rely on one channel and ignore the other channel. So we recommend to pursue both channels, distribution channel, the multi-tier distribution and streamlined channel. Both of them, they will work in parallel, so they can deliver a big amount to rural areas and urban areas. And as we see in the case study, they said that the second one, which is streamlined channel, target just the urban market. So they want, in their plan, they said they want to target the rural areas. So when they focus on multi-tier distribution, they can access those people in rural areas.
As far as sourcing management, once again, we offered or identified some key critical issues. 3-month lead time being a critical issue, maximum capacity, and not necessarily having the expertise on hand or the equipment or local resources to integrate vertical distribution and manufacturing methods. A solution is actually to avoid some of the vertical integration methods and use substitutes like purchasing local products for the polypropylene and polycarbonates, and look for other local manufacturers either in other countries or within the country. By working with them more locally, you actually decrease the value and need in vertically integrating, where you can set up partnering options if you start to work more with local.
Moving to present business environment, as I mentioned before about Arab Spring, the political shift may change business environment, and there is maybe another regulation will be imposed to manufacturers. The tax system may be changed. The environmental regulation may be restrict virtual integration, and as the new taxes maybe will come and change the situation. And also there is high value on distributor, low inflation in the economic side, and stable economics. Lots of educated people are immigrant, and this is, will be growing because when they count them, they found the most of educated people are outside the country. Growing young population, over 1 million people growth in 2 years, excluding immigration. Median age moved from 27 to 25 in 2 years.
As far as recommendations go, first of which would be to limit imports of other products. Since there is a lot of immigration of the Huggies brand, I believe, through illegal means, one of the ways to limit your competition would be to make it harder for other products to get shipped in illegally. Another would be to work with the government to set higher tariffs and other incentives to dollar brand and disincentives to other imported brands. Another would be to work with local countries for continued distribution. This would allow a large market growth. If you set up partnerships with Algeria, Western Sahara, Tunisia, and even as far as Egypt. The key with Egypt is there are a lot of resources, a lot of manufacturing facilities for the raw materials needed in manufacturing the diapers. It is relatively local. It's easy to ship between and within the country. And therefore, by working with the government of Egypt, there would be better opportunity for growth. Similarly, expanding into other markets like producing baby toys or anything using the same mixture of materials, increasing the number of manufacturing facilities, which obviously via both the market penetration and potential for expansion, there's a lot of value in adding your manufacturing facilities, even if you're producing the same product. Another option might be moving into other product brands like swimmable, young adult diapers, or naturally decomposable diapers, which would be very valuable in rural areas since that's one of the concerns. Overall, it would cause an increase in customer sales and greater opportunities for direct market sales. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening. Do you have any questions for us today?
Sorina, is you.
Thank you. Sorry, it takes me a few seconds to turn the mute off on my phone. Okay, so great presentation. Question about the threats. When you listed off the threats, you talked about the government encouraging other foreign companies to invest in Morocco. And yeah, I thought that was a really good point to bring up, just because you get to a situation where the government can either encourage P&G to invest in Morocco, but then that would hurt their own local company, or you discourage P&G from coming in, and then you allow Novatis Group to compete. So I guess how could you, if you were, a part of the Novatis Group, how would you work with the government to kind of battle that situation and kind of prevent them from wanting those big companies to come in and invest, create that additional competition?
I think, in my opinion, as the government, I think the government should balance the local industry and the foreign companies, because the local industry is fundamental industry for the company, and the foreign company investment to the developing country, they will help the developing country to develop his company. So I think the government should encourage the national industry and the foreign companies, but they must have the good rules for the industry, local industry and the foreign companies, and their combination must, according to the a lot of laws to competition in the market.
If I can also add to that, one of the things that the Novatis Group has is very strong communication with the existing government and strong friendships, from what we understood. Therefore giving a more personal incentive as well.
Okay, very true. Any other comments?
No, that's all.
Okay. All right, sorry, I don't want to cut anyone off. And then, another point that you mentioned was partnering with the local plastic manufacturing companies, which I thought was a really good idea too. Did you do some research and look for plastic companies, or I guess how did you come up with that idea?
As far as partnering with the plastics companies in Egypt, part of that was research. There's a lot of public access to where some of those manufacturing locations are. But more than that, I'm familiar with the local areas, and I know that there's 5 manufacturing hubs in just Michigan for both polypropylene and polycarbonate. So it kind of sparked the interest to look into those other divisions. And it's easy to get a hold of the raw materials in a lot of cases, but milling it down to the right sizes ends up being the harder thing to accomplish. And I think that would be the challenge for Novatis Group, and it may require adding another division for vertical integration.
Okay. That's really good insight. Thank you. Those are all my questions. I'm going to ask the other comments.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sorry. Now let me open up to other team members. You guys have questions?
So you did mention the working with the local government to increase tariffs for imports. And I think you did make a good point that, and I do agree that there has to be a balance between local economy versus external investment. Do you think, though, that there could be a perception of a hostile environment to external investors, to foreign investors into the country, if they know that local companies are encouraging the government to increase tariffs on foreign investors? Do you think that would cause foreign investors then to pull out, which could in fact disrupt even more the local economy?
That is definitely a high risk. I think it's worth analyzing.
And SWOT analysis can solve that. They have to do SWOT analysis every 2 years or every 5 years. So they can find out if it will work or not.
But thank you, very, very good comment, definitely something to consider.
Question?
The conclusion slide said something about local products scorching. What's scorching?
It may have been a misspelling. It should have been scoring for evaluating other local products in comparison.
What kind of rating? Oh, gotcha.
Two things. One, I think you talked about the same issue we had with the raw materials, the lead times. Any thoughts on how to mitigate that? I mean, besides, that to me, that's something that's a real challenge to overcome because, I'll take it to the extreme and say, let's say foreign governments or other companies see that you're jacking up tariffs and they jack up the prices on the raw materials in retaliation. I mean, just a thought. So I think that's a high risk point. And the other one that I know I didn't look at at all, but it also was mentioned in the case as far as Morocco trying to expand sales outside of Morocco and looking, and kind of expanding into a multinational company themselves. Is it something you think would be doable? I mean, obviously they have to scale up their production in order to do that, but you think that would be feasible? I mean, there seems to be a cultural, for that region, expanding into the surrounding countries. Your thoughts on that?
A lot of other countries have been successful in creating multi-state, multi-country trade organizations. There's one in the mid-east portion of Africa, which is now a 5-country trade agreement. And I think it's very feasible for Northwest Africa to do the same thing. And not just with diaper products, but in general as a co-op with the other nations to create a trade system that would be viable, sustainable, and cause a lot of continued growth. The countries that have done this, where it has worked, tend to also have higher tariffs because they're trying to encourage internal growth for businesses to get into that emerging market as well as have continued growth in a world platform. So I think there's a potential for that, and there are definitely downsides, like it being harder to get raw materials. One of the fortunate things about Morocco and the other local countries is the access to raw materials that just aren't being mined because of technology not being there or the infrastructure not being there. So I think it would actually encourage more industries to dive into the country.
I agree with Nicholas because there are so many countries in Africa has those materials, but it's hard to access those materials. They will have the technology and they have the budget to cover those. They can't reach to build like that in those countries.
Thank you for the questions. Did you have any other questions?
Very good.
Okay, thank you so much, before I let you go, Sarina, are you still, connected?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I mean, if there's nothing confidential, can you say me maybe a few words about what you do and, your position and, and give us some word of wisdom for me, and since we are all excited that you are connecting to Boeing, from Michigan.
Okay, yes, so kind of tell everyone about myself. First up, thank you all for letting me join your class today and listen to the presentation. It's really nice to hear